No, this is really cool back in here now. It's opening up. Whoa, look at this chamber.
While many people think of unknown civilizations to be found in deep space, we might not have to look far from home to see these aliens, as discoveries in Antarctica show tunnels leading to an underworld civilization. Who made the discovery, and do we finally have proof that aliens live among us? Stay tuned as we bring you all the details about the discovery of an ancient tunnel leading to an unknown civilization just found in Antarctica. Expeditions have been how many humans in history achieved hero status. However, not all explorers are celebrated, nor are their discoveries commemorated. In fact, some of them had their discoveries suppressed by the authorities. One of the explorers in the second group was Rear Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd. That's right, the name probably doesn't ring a bell, but what he discovered was recently leaked, and it calls into question everything we've been told about our planet. Rear Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd Jr. was a naval commander and explorer from the United States. He was a pioneering American pilot, polar explorer, and polar logistics organizer who received the Medal of Honor, the highest honor for valor bestowed by the United States. Byrd's Arctic career began in 1924 when he led a small naval aviation unit on Commander D.B. McMillan's Arctic expedition to western Greenland from Etah. Byrd's desire to fly over the North Pole sprang from his experience flying over sea ice and glaciers in western Greenland. Admiral Byrd heard there was an entrance to the center of the Earth through the South Pole, and he took planes under the South Pole. And when he did that, he discovered that as he flew over the pole, suddenly he was looking at things that shouldn't be there. On May 9, 1926, Byrd as navigator and Floyd Bennett as a pilot claimed to have accomplished the first airplane flight over the North Pole, flying from Kings Bay, Spitsbergen, Norway to the pole and back. The flight lasted 15.5 hours and was uneventful save for an oil leak from the starboard engine of their Fokker trimotor plane. They were both awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor and hailed as national heroes for their efforts. There was always some dispute over whether their jet had actually reached the North Pole, though. Byrd is well noted for his Antarctic explorations using airplanes and other modern technological tools. Mount Sidley, Antarctica's largest dormant volcano, was discovered by him. Mount Sidley is a member of the volcanic Seven Summits, and its spectacular remote setting makes it a must-do for adventurous mountaineers in search of one of the most remote and unique places on Earth. Byrd led several Antarctic expeditions. His first voyage was from 1928 to 1930, when he established Little America I on the Ross Ice Shelf. He undertook multiple flights over Antarctica from this base, discovering new territory and mountain ranges. Byrd undertook his second mission to Antarctica in 1933 to 1935, where he constructed Little America II. During his voyage, he spent 5 winter months alone at an advanced base 123 miles 198 kilometers from Little America, operating a meteorological station. Byrd's third Antarctic voyage from 1939 to 1941 established Little America III. He discovered Thurston Island and made several other significant discoveries during this journey. Byrd's fourth Antarctic trip, Little America IV, took place in 1946 to 1947. This voyage, known as Operation High Jump, had 13 ships and almost 4,000 personnel, making it the greatest Antarctic expedition to date. Byrd's fifth and last Antarctic voyage, Little America V, took place in 1955 to 1956. This trip was part of the International Geophysical Year (IGY) and was known as Operation Deep Freeze. Byrd made numerous significant discoveries and contributions to our understanding of Antarctica during his missions. However, the most exciting discoveries made by Byrd were lost to humanity for decades until his long-lost diary was found by his son. The diary, which was apparently in the custody of Tawani Wakawa Shush, founder of the International Society for a Complete Earth, ISCE, now known as the Hollow Earth Research Society, HERS, appeared in the 1970s and was published later after being passed on to UFO researcher and author Dan Weiss. The Missing Diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, edited by Timothy Green Beckley and Tim Swartz, allegedly talks of a mysterious voyage Byrd made over the North Pole on February 9, 1947, when he was apparently at the planet's southernmost extremity leading Task Force 68. It's unclear how this journal came into the ISC's custody, as is why he'd be flying over the North Pole while on a high-profile expedition to Antarctica. Task Force 68, assigned to Operation High Jump, left Norfolk, Virginia on December 2, 1946 for a 6-month tour of the Antarctic, but the expedition ended abruptly after about 2 months of mapping and photographing the continent's coastline and interior. The journal is titled Flight Log Base Camp Arctic and describes how just over 3 hours into the mission, Byrd notices a range of mountains he's never seen before while on a northerly heading, while also experiencing problems with the magnetic and gyro compasses, which are beginning to gyrate and wobble. Researchers assumed it was the log of a flight over the North Pole because the Base Camp Arctic tag and other references to a northerly heading. Less than 2 weeks later, reports from Chilean newspapers quoted Byrd as having encountered a new enemy that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds during a 20-minute engagement with incredible flying discs that emerged from the water and attacked the task force in the Weddell Sea. A log entry refers to a mission over Antarctica during which Byrd claims to have been pulled through a vortex into the inner Earth, where he met the humanoid inhabitants of Agartha and a figurehead known as the Master, who chastises Byrd for humanity's recent invention of the atomic bomb and warns of a dark age if humans do not change their ways. It all appeared extremely weird and was certainly not discussed again by Byrd following his briefing at the Pentagon, with a last journal entry implying he was pledged never to speak of the occurrences again. A Chilean newspaper stories from March 5th, when crew members of Task Force 68 told reporters of clashes with the fantastic disc-shaped vehicles that resulted in many fatalities, are possibly the most compelling proof of Byrd's encounters in Antarctica in 1947. Instead of denying the enormous casualties, Byrd alerted the Chilean press about a new opponent capable of traveling from pole to pole at amazing speeds. In his diary, Byrd reports having flown through a weird mountain range before discovering lush flora where there should have been ice and snow during his February voyage into the interior of the Earth. He claims to have seen a mammoth and then been drawn to a city where there should be none, which he subsequently discovers is named Agartha. During the flight, the navigation instruments are spinning all over the place, and the gyroscope oscillates back and forth with the plane's controls unresponsive. The airplane is escorted to Agartha by radiant disc-shaped aircraft with swastikas. Until this point, the diary entries are brief and chronological, but after landing, many tall, blonde-haired beings order Byrd and his radio man to exit the craft, and Byrd is afterward escorted for a meeting with the Master. The subsequent entries are Byrd's recollections of the events. He is informed that he is in the Ariane domain, the interior world of the Earth, and that his task will not be delayed for long. According to him, the carnage caused by the first atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan prompted the Ariane to send their Flugelrods, translated from German as flying discs, to the surface world to explore the influence of these weapons on mankind's growth. You see, we have never interfered before in your race wars and barbarity, but now we must because you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely that of atomic energy. The Master says to Byrd, "Our emissaries have already delivered messages to your world's powers, but they have not heeded. You have been chosen to be a witness to the fact that our world exists. You see, our culture and science are inextricably linked. In 1945 and afterwards, we tried to contact your race, but our efforts were met with hostility, and our Flugelrods were fired upon," the Master says. "Yes, your jet planes are pursuing you with venom and animosity. So, my son, I warn you that a big storm is brewing in your globe, a terrible fury that will last for many years. There will be no answer in your arms, no security in your science. It may continue to rage until every blossom of your civilization has been trampled, and all human things have been leveled in huge chaos. Your latest conflict was but a foreshadowing of what is to come for your race." The Master then instructs Byrd to return to Earth with a message for humanity. "The dark ages that will now come for your race will cover the Earth like a pall, but I believe that some of your race will live through the storm. Beyond that, I cannot say." We see a new world stirring from your race's ashes, seeking its lost and mythical treasures, and they will be here, my son, secure in our hands. When that time comes, we will come forward once more to help revive your culture and race. Perhaps by then you'll have realized the futility of war and struggle. After that time, certain aspects of your culture and knowledge will be returned, allowing your species to begin again. Bird is then led back to meet his radio man, and the two are returned to their plane, which is directed out of the city and returned to their base camp, where it appears to land an hour or so later. However, less than 3 weeks after this reported encounter, Operation High Jump was unexpectedly cancelled, and Task Force 68 was holed up in Chilean ports, with crewmen informing the media of a battle against weird discs that came from the sea. After his Pentagon debriefing on March 11th, Bird was silenced and nothing more was heard from the master. However, a disc-shaped object is said to have been recovered from a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico in July of that year, during a period when there were waves of UFO sightings over residential areas across the United States. Many have speculated that Operation High Jump was a reaction to a purported Nazi colony called Neuschwabenland that Adolf Hitler had created in Antarctica during World War II, with the Führer himself perhaps escaping there. Author of World Top Secret, Our Earth is Hollow, author Rodney Clough claimed Bird reached the Hollow Earth for the first time in 1927 through an entrance in the North Pole and returned 2 years later through apertures in both poles. He is said to have flown halfway through the South Pole opening as part of the Operation High Jump operation in 1946, before being taken back into the inner Earth by a search expedition for German World War II refugees in February 1947. Genesis for the space race author John Leith goes on to claim that the task force was then turned away from the continent after Bird allegedly fired upon the disc-shaped craft. Now, a lot of questions exist, foremost among which is why was Bird silenced and not allowed to freely talk about his encounter? How could the knowledge of his encounter have helped or shaped humanity if he had not been gagged? And was the spate of UFO encounters around that period in any way connected to this encounter? What is not in doubt is the popularity of UFO sightings in Antarctica, with prominent UFO hunters reporting sightings. The latest finding, according to Scott Waring of ET Database, demonstrates that aliens have been on Earth for hundreds or possibly thousands of years. He claimed to have discovered the photograph of the suspected alien UFO while using Google Maps. Waring chose to virtually tour Antarctica using the application. He came upon an object that was partially buried beneath snow and ice while touring the area. Waring noticed that the item resembled an alien vessel upon closer inspection. According to the photographs, the object has a metallic-like body with a triangular shape. It also has a hump in the middle. However, what many may be hearing for the first time is the Hollow Earth theory. The concept of subterranean worlds has existed since ancient times, and it became entwined with the concept of places such as Greek Hades, the Nordic Svartalfheim, the Jewish Sheol, and the Christian Hell. Plato is often regarded as the first thinker of Hollow Earth. In 1692, Edmund Halley proposed the Earth as a hollow shell 500 miles or 800 kilometers thick, with two inner concentric shells and an innermost core, the diameters of Venus, Mars, and Mercury. These shells are separated by atmospheres, and each shell has its own magnetic poles. These spheres rotate at varying rates. Halley developed this approach to explain unusual compass readings. He saw the atmosphere inside as brilliant and possibly inhabited, and hypothesized that the aurora borealis was generated by escaping gas. De Camp and Ley suggest in their book Lands Beyond that Leonard Euler presented a hollow Earth concept, eliminating numerous shells and positing an inside sun 600 miles or 1,000 kilometers broad to supply light to advanced inner Earth civilization. However, we know that Euler, on the other hand, also described a thought experiment with an obviously solid Earth in his letters to a German princess. De Camp and Ley also say that Sir John Leslie elaborated on Euler's notion, naming two center suns, Pluto and Proserpine, unrelated to the dwarf planet Pluto, which was discovered and named later. Leslie does propose a hollow Earth in his 1829 Elements of Natural Philosophy, but no internal suns are mentioned. And in 1818, John Cleves Sims Jr. proposed that the Earth had a hollow shell, 800 miles or 1,300 kilometers thick, with apertures 1,400 miles or 2,300 kilometers broad at both poles, and 4 inner shells, each open at the poles. Sims was the most well-known of the early hollow Earth advocates. Thanks to the efforts of one of his supporters, James McBride, he really advocated conducting a trip to the North Pole hole, but the new president of the United States, Andrew Jackson, cancelled the plan. Sims died in 1829. Jeremiah Reynolds, another devotee, held lectures on the hollow Earth and urged for an expedition. After Sims' death, he eventually stopped talking about a hollow Earth. Reynolds proceeded on his own journey to Antarctica but did not participate in the Great United States Exploring Journey of 1838 to 1842, despite the fact that his agitation caused the expedition to be cancelled. He didn't go because he had insulted too many people with his request for such a trip. William Reed, an early 20th century proponent of a hollow Earth, published Phantom of the Poles in 1906. He proposed a hollow Earth, but one without inside shells or inner suns. Marshall Gardner published A Journey to the Earth's Interior in 1913, with an enlarged edition published in 1920. He inserted an inner sun inside the hollow Earth. He even developed and copyrighted a working model of the hollow Earth. Gardner made no mention of Reed, although he did criticize Sims' beliefs. At the same time, Vladimir Obruchev published the fiction novel Plutonia, in which the hollow Earth's interior was inhabited by prehistoric creatures and had one inner or central sun. A hole in the Arctic connected the interior to the surface. Others have hypothesized that esoteric wisdom's ascended masters live in subterranean tunnels or a hollow Earth. Antarctica, the North Pole, Tibet, Peru, and Mount Shasta in California, the USA, have all been proposed as gateways to a subterranean world known as Agartha, with some even supporting the claim that UFOs have a home in these areas. The Hollow Earth, a book reportedly written by Dr. Raymond Bernard and published in 1969, demonstrates this concept. The book repeats Reed and Gardner's concepts while ignoring Sims. Bernard also adds his own theories, such as UFOs coming from the inside, the Ring Nebula proving the existence of hollow planets, and so on. The pseudonym Bernard was used by Walter Siegmeister, according to an essay by Martin Gardner, but the complete story of Bernard Siegmeister emerged in 1989 with Walter Kaftan Minkel's Subterranean Worlds, 100,000 Years of Dragons, Dwarfs, the Dead, Lost Races, and UFOs from Inside the Earth. Amazing Stories, a pulp science fiction magazine, marketed one such theory as the Shaver Mystery from 1945 until 1949. Ray Palmer, the magazine's editor, published a series of stories by Richard Sharp. Shaver allegedly stated it as factual, although being presented in the context of fiction. Shaver stated that a superior prehistoric species established a honeycomb of caves in the earth, and that its degenerate offspring known as Dero still live below, tormenting those of us who live on the surface with the marvelous technology abandoned by the ancient races. Shaver cited voices that allegedly came from no explainable source as one feature of this anguish, and thousands of people came in to say they too had heard the demonic whispers from within the earth. And instead of claiming that people dwell on the outside surface of a hollow globe known as a convex hollow Earth theory, some suggest that our cosmos exists within a hollow world known as a concave hollow Earth theory. According to this viewpoint, the Earth's surface may resemble the internal shell of a Dyson sphere. In 1869, Cyrus Teed, a doctor from upstate New York, hypothesized a concave hollow Earth dubbed cellular cosmogony. Teed developed the Futureunity cult based on this concept, which he dubbed Futureunity. The main colony is still standing as a Florida State Historic Monument in Estero, but all of Teed's followers have perished. Teed's disciples claim to have experimentally proven the Earth's curvature by surveying the Florida shoreline with rectilineator technology, and several 20th century German writers supported the hollow Earth theory, including Peter Bender, Johannes Lang, Karl Neupert, and Fritz Braun. Stories have also circulated, however without historical verification, that Hitler was influenced by concave hollow Earth notions and launched an expedition to spy on the British Navy by aiming cameras up into the sky. Mostafa Abdelkader, an Egyptian mathematician, wrote many scientific publications outlining a precise mapping of the concave Earth model. Martin Gardner proposes that light beams move in circular routes, slowing as they approach the center of the spherical star-filled cavern. In commonly accepted scientific cosmology, no energy can reach the cavern's center, which corresponds to no point a finite distance away from Earth. Gardner claims that a drill would lengthen as it moved out from the cavern, finally passing through the point at infinity that corresponds to the center of the Earth in widely accepted scientific cosmology. No experiment, it is said, can tell the difference between the two cosmologies. Most mathematicians believe that an inside-out universe with properly adjusted physical laws is empirically irrefutable, writes Martin Gardner. Gardner dismisses the concave hollow Earth theory based on Occam's razor. So what does gravity look like in a hollow Earth? Some on the inside of a hollow Earth would not feel an outward pull and would be unable to stand on the inner surface. Instead, gravity theory suggests that a person on the inside would be almost weightless. This was demonstrated for the first time by Newton, whose shell theorem predicts a gravitational force of 0 everywhere inside a spherically symmetric hollow shell of matter, regardless of its thickness. A minor gravitational force would result from the Earth's lack of a perfectly symmetrical spherical shape, as well as forces from masses such as the Moon that are not part of the spherical shell. And the centrifugal force generated by the Earth's rotation would pull a person on the inner surface outwards, although even at the equator this is only 1/300th of normal Earth gravity. Also, if the Earth were mostly hollow but made of the same materials, it would have considerably less mass and gravity on the outer surface would be much lower.